My name is Gary, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Gary!
Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need to always maintain personal anonymity as a level of press, radio, and films. If anyone here represents a media agency, please contact Ray E. The members of the North Central Indiana area of Narcotics Anonymous welcome you to the second annual We Grow With Love convention. We would like to thank you for joining with us in this celebration of recovery. We are deeply grateful to Narcotics Anonymous and find great joy in being able to express our gratitude here with you, our family. In Narcotics Anonymous, we are certain that when we come together to share our lives and our love with each other, a miracle happens. Our recovery takes hard work, courage, and commitment. Those are the things that carry us through as we seek the spiritual growth that comes from working the 12 steps. Never alone, we do this together and for each other, knowing that we need each other, because more than anything else, we grow with love. The preface to the basic text begins, "The full fruit of a labor of love lives in the harvest, and that always comes in its right season. For us, our season has come." I've asked Nancy to read Why Are We Here?
Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm an addict.
Hi, Nancy.
My family. Before coming to the Fellowship of NA, we could not manage our own lives. We could not live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different, and we thought we had found it in drugs. We placed their use ahead of the welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we are actually creating our own problems. We seem to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction we were slowly committing suicide, but addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we had lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, or psychiatry. None of these methods was sufficient for us. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in desperation we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffered from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
About the unity statement. The group that I'm closest to goes to 4 or 5 conventions every year, and at one of these conventions they had a unity statement that they read before each workshop and before each speaker meeting, and it sounded really nice, and we thought it was a good idea and that we should include something like that here. Since I'm on the programming committee, I volunteered to write the unity statement. What I know about Narcotics Anonymous I learned here. So as a reflection of unity, it's what you taught me about Narcotics Anonymous, and I hope it reflects how we all feel about Narcotics Anonymous. The speakers are Tommy and Mike. I met them both last year at the convention. They are both people that I greatly admire. One of the things that meant most to me in my recovery was being associated with people that I do admire. When I first came here, I couldn't stand the thought that anybody would accept me, and let alone people that I really cared about. So being with people that I think so highly of and being accepted by those people has made a big difference in my recovery. The thing about being here was that I didn't care about the program when I got here. What I cared about was being around the people that could change me and help me change, that I could feel cared about me and my recovery. With that, Tommy in particular was here last year. He has been a real inspiration to me. he is somebody who you can tell has joy in his recovery and is inspiring to watch. I enjoy talking to him. I've stayed in contact with him in the course of the last year. I've talked to him at several conventions, and he is somebody that I have looked forward to since last year. With that, I'd like to...
I didn't shave much, and I had like one set of clothes. And, the classic example of someone that's not really inviting for people to walk over to. And my expressions also said that. When people even looked like they were going to come over to me, I just like snarled and they kind of backed off. One meeting I went to, they had a greeter, and this guy hugged me at the door and gave me a text. And I never went back to that meeting again. I was not going to allow myself to be touched by any person. And I really wasn't into talking to people. I was like this, rock and roll loner cowboy, and I was going to do it by myself. But come about 20 days of making a lot of meetings and staying clean, this noise in my head was starting to grow. There were all these voices going on, and I couldn't stand it. And I was getting really afraid because I knew that I was going to have to use again to quiet it down. It's the only way that I knew to shut it off. And I didn't want to. Because by that time I had seen some things that I kind of liked in people, and I started to believe that the people in the meetings were really clean. I mean, 90 days and 30 days, the people with years I didn't really believe. But like 90 days and stuff, I like really believed that those people were doing it. So at the end of a meeting, where they had the moment of silence, I just like blurted out, could you maybe say a prayer tonight for my brother who's out there and he's really in rough shape. He's like really bad, and he checked into a mental institution today, and he's out on the street and he's abandoned from his family, and I just blurted this whole thing out. I just didn't know what to do, and that was my way of asking for help. And they did. They said, what's his name? And they said this moment of silence is for him, and then people came over to me and talked to me after the meeting, and I got a sponsor that night. And that was really funny and scary, because he asked me what lengths was I willing to go to, and I thought that meant that I had to be his lover and wash his car and do his laundry. But I was willing to do that, to get what people had in the rooms, and they were clean and they were pretty happy and they seemed pretty comfortable, and that's something that I wasn't. And so I said, I'm willing to go to any lengths, whatever it takes. And he said, good, and you got to call me like within 72 hours. I must hear from you. That means you don't call my machine. You don't leave messages. You don't tell somebody else to tell me something. Like, we must speak. I said, sure, fine. Whatever it is. And we began to do some work, and he told me to read the book and to read all the literature, all the pamphlets, and sit up front and get there early and get a coffee commitment. And he gave me a whole list of things. I didn't have a problem with it. I was like, I knew that what was going on in my head was not going to keep me clean. I had no problem with that. I knew that I was definitely a candidate for being institutionalized. I knew that what's going on here was not pretty, it was not good, it was not healthy, it was total mess. It was nothing but fear and pain, and I kept hearing people say that what you know is what got you here. So I just kind of put myself in a place of being a blank page and let them just tell me what to do. And we began the journey of the steps. And that was like really an amazing thing. I mean, it was just about writing on paper, answering some questions, and then going and sharing it with them. And I got such a sense of like being like this high off the ground after doing it, that like I knew that I really tapped into something that was real, and it was real magical, and it was real special, and it absolutely worked. Like all the guarantees that they say in the text were true. And that people with years, maybe they really did have those years. And after doing that first step, I hit a wall, and I hit it real hard. Like the noise started to get louder, and I started to get like hives. Like when people would like be high-strung that I was around, or confrontational, or whatever, I would start busting out all these welts all over my body. And this like committee would start getting really, really loud. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, Rich, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can stay clean. I think I need to go to a hospital, and I think I need to go and check into a medical center, a mental health, and put some time in there." And he told me, "Well, if you really feel that way, do it, but I really think that we should do some step work first. And then if you still feel that way, then you can check into an institution." I mean, I was willing to believe anything this guy told me at that point. I mean, he was clean like 2 years. This guy had 2 years without putting nothing in his body. And it seemed like a lifetime. So he told me I was at work, and he told me to go into the back room and hit your knees and pray. And ask God to stop the noise for you, that you're going to use if you don't. And I did. I hit my knees, and it stopped. And about 2 minutes later, it was back. So I called him up, and I said, "It didn't work." And he said, "Nothing?" I said, "Well, it stopped for about a minute, but that's no good. You know, I need to get rid of this thing." And he told me, "Pray again." He says, "And what'll happen is that the more you pray, the longer the gaps will get, that you get a little bit of peace." And he was right. I mean, I really took no stock in God or religion or nothing like that. You know, I was like Huck Finn. You know, it just didn't make no sense to me. You know, I had all the negative attitudes. I would see people leaving church and cursing people out of their car windows, and you know, all of that stuff, and I didn't think they were getting anything there. And I really didn't think there was a God, because I had like the whole thing about the Crusades and all of these deaths behind religion and all of these maniacs and torture and all this crazy stuff in the name of God, and I figured that there just wasn't one. But this praying thing worked, and it really worked because I was able to invent my own. And my first God was this guy that was on this beautiful tropical island in a lounge chair, and he had these two fabulously beautiful women serving him drinks, because of course he's not an addict. And I wasn't using them, so he was on vacation. And I would have to like call him in prayer and say, "Yo, get up off the chair, I need you. Like, you're on now, you know? Punch in and let's get busy." And this was how I talked to God. My first, and it worked. You know, I had this visualization, this guy going, "Okay, let's do it." And I got some peace. I got some glimpses of serenity. And like in here, I really knew that I could do this. Today for me, coming to believe is about the realization of like why I used. One of the big reasons why I used was that I am a spiritual being. I'm a spiritual person. And what drugs did for me was it gave me a synthetic spiritual experience. It gave me like what I got today, sort of. It gave me this like lightness and this just feeling of being like okay all the time, and everything's cool and nothing really bothers me, and it all kind of rolls off, and I really love life, and I can giggle and laugh at the stupidest things and say the most ridiculous, retarded things, and it's like fine. I'm not ashamed of who I am. The pain of living is like none. And I'm not afraid of people anymore. I was afraid of everybody when I was out there. It was a nightmare. But today I'm not. I really love people. People are great. I mean, all of them. They're so fun, and everyone's different, but everyone's the same, and it's really neat. From like, all the authority figures that I would like shrivel up to, and to everybody. They're all just so great. They're people. And nobody's that scary anymore. It's like through working the steps and working with God, because you definitely need God to work the steps. I come to know who I am today, and what I'm about, and sort of how I work. And like, I'm really okay with me. And by being okay with me, I'm okay with you. You can be angry, you can be ornery, you can be whatever you want to be, because I've been all those things, and I own them, and I accept them all, and so I can accept them in you. I don't beat myself up for acting inappropriately at times. I do. So shoot me. That's what I got from being here. I mean, I can get up in front of a room of people, and whatever comes out is going to come out. And I just don't have no response. I don't take any responsibility for it. I prayed before I got up here, and I said, God, I brought the body, put it on a plane, I got it here, I fed it, I washed it, now use it. It's here. If you let me do it, I'm going to make a mess. But like, if you do it, and that like frees me the responsibility of having to like, I got to say something profound, I don't have to say anything. I can just sit here and say nothing. If that's what's going to happen, it's fine, And that's how I live my life. I'm like really I'm living it that way today. I'm like doing some really like crazy things. People are saying like, wow, you spent all these years building up this business and all this stuff, and you're ditching it. I'm ditching it. I trust that this God that I have in my life, that's like really totally cool, completely imperfect, but really, really like a nice guy, and really wants like the best things for this planet, is going to help me to like do work that helps to make this planet a better place to be on. Like, I decided to set some big goals and go for some big stuff. And I can do that because I don't really care how it works out. I'm going to put my 100% in like I do at recovery, and my relationship with God, I'm going to give it 100%. And however it works out is how it works out. And that's it. It just feels right in the moment to do that, so I'm going to do it. I'm not stopped by all this stuff that I had for so many years as a result of the steps. I can do anything. Literally, I can do anything. I can put a suit on. I can go to meetings. I didn't own a suit, ever. But I can wear them today, and I actually like the way I look in them. I like the way I feel in them. I feel like this briefcase and stuff. It's cool, It's because I don't judge people in suits no more. And I don't call them stiffs, and I don't like have this whole tape about people with suits. So now I can be one. It's a lot of freedom in doing this stuff. It's a great freedom. You can soar. You can really soar. You're not like this weight dragging around all the time with this old bag of shit on your arms. And if you put a good foundation in with the God of your understanding, it can be anything that's loving and caring and greater than yourself. It really can't be a chair or a table. You're in. You get a sponsor, and you do the things that the people before us did. You're guaranteed to get results. Guaranteed, 100%. They give it to you in writing. It's like no kidding. We're real serious about recovery. If you want, we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it. It's here. It's here for the taking. Have a great recovery. My name's Tommy. Thank
It always blows me away that we travel such great distances to get together and do this. When we got the registrations in the mail and opened them, and we said, Mike's coming from Iowa again. He wants to do a workshop. All right. I've ever since then I've been really looking forward to listen to Mike share. So.
Hi everybody, my name is Mike and I'm addict in recovery. I'm really grateful to be asked to speak, and it's really an honor to be here, and I am nervous. And I know God's with me today. Through this program I've learned that He is in my life. At first I came, and then I came to believe that God can help me in my recovery, and I am working on step 2, so this is kind of what I really needed to talk about, because I needed to read about it and write about it and open my mind to it, because a lot of times I don't. The only time I ask God for help is when I'm hurt, and that's when I'm screaming for help. And He's there all the time if I want to talk to Him. My God is everywhere, you know. And I learned about religion when I was young. It was forced on me. I was born to alcoholic parents, and my dad went to a Catholic school, so he decided to spend the extra money and send us to a Catholic school, so we'd be brought up the right way, you know. With the nuns were my higher power in high school, and their black garb, you know, and the ruler, you know, and we went to church every day before school, and I still got bad knees from that, kneeling all the time. That's what I blame it on anyway. It was kind of forced on me, you know, having to go every day, and I used to get in the habit of just taking a little nap before I went to school at church, and I felt guilty about it, but it just seemed like the thing to do. And I don't know, and then they taught us all the different religions, but they always told us that the Catholic religion was the right one, of course. And I don't know, I developed my own opinions about religion, and I took it for granted, and now it's been hard to develop a true understanding of a higher power in my life. I know how to pray. I was taught how to pray, but there's an art to it if you really want it to be heard, and you want God to help you. I mean, you can beg Him for help, or you can just want Him to be in your life, I guess. I know God has helped me to overcome my obsession to use drugs, and my life has improved 100% because of it. I know I was killing myself when I was using. I read all the literature we have about this step, so I could have something profound to say, like Tommy said. And you kill yourself a bag at a time, a pill at a time, and I just worship. My God was drugs. I mean, I got up in the morning thinking about it. I went to bed at night wondering if I was going to have any more the next day, and it was a sick life. I went to work just to because I had a job, I guess. I don't know. I used at work. I used on the sly when we were at my wife's parents' house. We'd be hiding and sneaking, and they are alcoholics, and they just kind of they didn't really want to believe that it was even happening, I think. We'd only go to church on the holidays. And, we don't really go to, I guess my church now is the NA meetings, because that's where I go to do my meditation and prayer, and to seek guidance. And that's what the church is for, I guess. I'd like to develop a more religious lifestyle, I guess, and go to church more regularly, but anyway, I believe God is with us all, and that if we if we really want our lives to get better, all we have to do is pray to Him, and He'll be there for us. I don't know. I'm saying I a lot. My higher power is a loving and caring person. I trust Him with my heart to be there for me. I don't know. Houston was really hard on our life, and sometimes I think I completely lost the ability to remember things. Like I'll read it, and then a minute later it'll be gone. And I would like to work on that, to be able to share what I think. You sit at a meeting, and all the good things go through your mind that you'd like to say, and one minute they're there, and the next minute they're gone. I feel that all the time, that I'd like to jump up, like you say, and start talking whenever a thought comes to your mind. That I don't know. I'm really grateful that I have the NA program today to turn to. It's like they say, the group is your higher power. The first thing I did when I realized I was going to co-chair this meeting is I called my sponsor, and he said that it would be a good place for me to be at this time, and that after you surrender in the first step, that you have to have a place to go with your life, and turn your life over to a higher power, and believe in something to fill that empty void that you leave when you quit using drugs. I know this workshop is for the people here, and I'm going to reserve myself to come back and talk again here, but right now I'd like to just turn the mic over to anybody that wants to share.
I need to remind everybody that you are being taped, and if you don't want to be taped, just say so and we'll turn it off. Lynn told me to quit messing with the mic. You can share up here, or if you want, you can share in your seat. That's good.
I'm an addict. My name is Skip. Gratefully recovering through the grace of God, the NA program, and your people. I don't know, and coming to believe, when I came here, and I went to a meeting, and this really stuck with me. I heard a guy sharing at an open speaker meeting, and I had been to meetings with him. He came and picked me up. I was new in the program. I think I had like 30 days clean. And he told his story, and he talked about where he came from, living above a bar with a hot plate, real angry person. Everybody had left him, his family. And then I seen this guy, man, in the program, that when we rode to meetings, he would wave hi to people he didn't know. And that used to mess me up, man, He was real happy, He walked outside, and his daughter would be waiting for him. He was putting her through college, and I told him, what happened, man? And he said, this program and the steps happened. And that's when the process of coming to believe started for me. I believed in him for a long time, For me, the insanity, and I heard a good definition of it, in the basic text, making the same mistakes and expecting different results. And then an addict shared one step further than that. He talked about making the same mistakes and knowing the results, and I did a lot of that. I practiced a lot of that, and there's days where I still do, I learned a lot of things in this program, man, and I feel that nothing's original, and that I learn things so I can share them with someone else. And I feel that's how the program works for me. You know, I learned that when I go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, I'm in fact practicing a second step. You know, because I believe that whatever insanity that I'm going through, when I go to this meeting, you know, I'm going to be restored. You know, and that's why I go to meetings, you know, and I still have those brief moments, you know, but they're far and few between today. You know, I have those thoughts, but I don't have to act out on them today. You know, I believe in this program. You know, I believe that what comes from the heart reaches the heart. You know, and it was all in the process of coming to believe, man. And I believe that today I'm still coming to believe. You know, that the process is not over. You know, when I came to this convention, you know, last year, I was floating, man. I floated out of here, man. I did, man. I was on that pink cloud, man. I went home, man, and people said, "Where did you go?" I said, "I'm going back." You want to come, you know? And I came here believing that I was going to get the same thing, you know? And I did, man. Something about this place. You know, an addict shared with me, you know, he goes, you know, coming to believe is just like, you know, for me, recovery, it means to get back, you know, what we once had, you know. And I can remember as a child, you know, believing in Santa Claus and believing in the Easter Bunny, and, you know, believing that, you know, if I fell down and skinned my knee when I went to my mother's arms, that it was going to be all right. I believed in the power of believing, you know. And when I was using, I had to see it to believe it. You know, today I believe in things that I can't see but I can feel. You know, I believe there's a spirit in these rooms, man. And it's with me everywhere I go. And I strongly believe in that, man. And when I share Narcotics Anonymous, I believe in what I'm saying. You know, I read the basic text. You know, because I heard about powers greater than myself. And I had a sponsor that got me to the basic text. And that book is a power greater than me. My sponsor is a power greater than me. You people are a power greater. And that put it real simple to me, man. He said, if we all wanted to go pick up your Datsun, we could, but you couldn't do it alone. And I believe in you people. You know. And that took a while, man, because I believed you guys were getting high when I came here. You know what I mean? I strongly believe that, man. And I started to meet people and build relationships with people, and I started, you know, they told me that the program works when I walk outside the meeting. That I can come and give all this lip service, but if I'm not walking it, if my hips don't match my lip, you know, then it's all for nothing. You know, and I seen them working the program outside of these rooms, man, and I started believing in those people. Today I have faith, man, and I walked out on faith, on blind faith, and it worked. And my faith has built. It's been a progression, man, and it's getting stronger. Today I don't face everything and run, man. Today I face everything and recover. You know, I know fear is a negative reaction, you know, to the future. See, and I learned all this stuff in this program, man. I learned all of this in this program. And I take very little credit for what I learned, man, because I know God speaks through people. And I know this is a God-given program, freely given, only His grace, from which I'm recovering, man. I'd like to wish everybody in this room love, peace, and recovery, and I keep coming back.
Thanks.
My name is Chris. I'm an addict. I want to thank Tommy and Mike for your leads. That was really great. something, Tommy, something that you said, Tommy, really struck home was that conversation. That conversation with your sponsor about needing mental help. Right about that time for me when I came in, I knew I was powerless. I did not have any difficulty accepting that. It was like really obvious by the time I got to the doors. I knew I was an addict. I mean, I knew I was an addict the last couple of years. It's one thing to know you're an addict and still get high and just be like, yeah, I don't have any control over this, past the whatever. It's a totally different thing. For me, it was totally different than trying to stop, and trying to stop is when I got an idea just how bad the shit really had me, and those voices, I had those voices, and I remember talking to my sponsor and just saying, I had about 30 days or whatever, and I was like, well, this has been great. I never thought I could do this, but I need a fucking hospital or something, because this is, this shit, it's really getting me. And, my sponsor said the same thing. He said, well, why don't we try and work through the steps a little bit and see what happens, and then he pointed to the words, he's like, we got this coming up right here. It says you can be restored to sanity. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about you need some professional help, you're insane, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. It just seemed too abstract, I thought I could go and sit with a doctor or whatever and they could fix me, or at least stop that shit, I mean, yeah, it's like, because, like for me using, I did a lot of things that I look back now and I go, man, that was crazy, but like when you're out there, it's all just sort of business as usual, It was nothing compared to like the shit that was going on in my head. The stuff that was going on in my head when I first got clean put the actual actions of using to shame. I mean, that stuff that I did was nothing compared to what was going on in my head, So like I really, really needed to be restored to something, And and I'm thankful that, I'm thankful that I had some faith or something kept me with it, kept me with my sponsor. We worked through it and things got a lot better, But like I also heard somebody say too, it's something that, it's not like, okay, I worked the second step and now I'm sane. It's something that has to keep, that I have to keep in my life. I don't have that relentless, obsessive, compulsion to get high like when I first was, getting clean. But I have other levels of insanity that I have to believe are going to go away. It's like I have to keep moving forward. Because it's like anytime I stay anywhere too long, shit starts to pile up, and the voices come back a little bit. They're not as ominous, they're not as dark as they were back then, but sometimes they can get pretty bad, and I have to believe that that I can move forward, that I can get better. With the second step, I can do that. It's a really powerful step, and I'm really thankful for it, and that's all I got. Thanks, Chris.
I'm Adam Howard.
Howard.
Truly grateful to be at another convention, another meeting. I thank higher power for giving me the strength and the knowledge to be here. I don't know. I like what all the speakers had to say today. I always do. I honestly believe that the God who is within each and every one of us sitting here today, and every human being in existence, I honestly believe it's in there. Just like my girl said, it's like Ragu, it's in there, And by me just looking at the program, I was looking at we can't believe / faith, and I immediately went to the second and the third step, because with my knowledge of coming around the meetings and practicing the steps in Narcotics Anonymous, I've learned that by coming to believe, we can be restored to sanity. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that's what I needed. These steps, they go in order, and And that second step, I needed that, you know, because at the end of that first step is not where we're at, it's where we're going, that last line. And I really thought I was going somewhere, y'all. And I really thought I was on a real voyage. And I was here last year, and the speaker in Tennessee said, you ain't going nowhere but to the second step, you know? and it was real popular to me, you know. I knew that then, but he made it so simple, you know. And that's what it's meant to do, for you to do, to go right to the second step and so on, you know. And through that coming to believe, it just said a power greater than yourself, you know, and it wasn't speaking of no God. And I was grateful for that at that time because my concept of a God was non-existent. You know, the God that I prayed not to be an addict to, you know. Why me? You know, I mean, that's just where I was at one particular time in my life. So through practicing these steps and coming to believe and gaining some faith in something outside of myself who I choose to call God, today I'm grateful that I had this process of these steps to step into a power greater than myself and then into a God of my own understanding, you know. And that was only through the steps of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, I'm grateful for my sponsors that I've had throughout the years and how they took the basic text and Daniel Webster dictionary and put me to work, you know. I mean, they literally put me to work. And that word insanity, I like the basic text definition of it, you know, I really do. Then I like the legal definition of it too. It kind of fits me just a little bit better in a lot of other areas of my life, you know. The legal definition of insanity is not being able to make the right decisions. And boy, did that fit me, you know. You know, I was never seeing like I was able to make the right decisions, you know. And then going right into the third step, it was talking about we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. I said, oh, that's the decision I should have been making, you know. And it's just like, you know, it's just like a puzzle. It was just fitting right into place for me, you know. And once I got there, it was like, okay, now I made this decision and I turned this over to a power that's loving, caring, and greater than me. It's not in my hands no more. You know, that's why I'm identifying with you, Tommy. You know, it's not in my hands anymore. So why can't I keep stepping out? Why I have to have all this fear? And everything that's happening around me, why do I have to have all this fear? Why I can't have enough courage to take a fourth step? You know, if I really turn this over, it's not in my hands. You know, if I'm going to let him do this. You know, I'm like, go ahead. Okay. You know, but then on a given day, I'm not perfect, you know. I still can practice some insanity. But I can make a meeting of Narcotics Anonymous and get real honest and practice the principles, and the next thing I know, I can be restored. You know, and that's the truly good part of being a member of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, some place where I can go and talk and let go of all the bull, you know. If I can work the steps, and if I'm taking a 10th step, half the time when I do take a 10th step, I end up at the second. Because through taking that 10th step, I know I got to go back to second step, but I wouldn't be taking a 10th step that regularly if I wasn't practicing some kind of insanity. You know, and it's just so simple for me, you know, if I do it like that, and it just works for me, you know, sometimes. But sometimes I just need to go to a meeting for even a newcomer or any member to tell me, where are you at? How are you doing? You know. Sometimes, you know, just keep coming, you know. My best friend, he always tells me, you know, if you're new in the program, the steps work if you work them. If you've been here a few years, the steps work if you work them. If you've been here for a lot of years, the steps work if you work them. You know, and it's valid. You know, all the suggestions I hear around the fellowship are valid. Even if it's the wrong thing to do and I know the right thing is valid. Because it restores me in a sense to know right from wrong. It helps me make that decision. See, all of us have this Noah inside of us. I honestly believe that. We have this Noah. We know when we're doing wrong. We know, you know, when we're doing wrong. And sometimes, by me practicing principles in a negative form, that's like being dishonest and not tolerable. You know, sometimes I can be in the bank and I don't want to practice no patience. No, I got to practice patience when I'm cash this check. You know, but I don't want to practice it at that particular moment. You know, so I'll be on the edge, and then here comes some anger and all that other stuff. You know, so I need somebody to just tell me, you know, keep it simple. You know, or do it, slow it down. You know. And that's why I have blue ribbon people in my life, and they're recovering addicts, my ultimate weapon. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Howard.
I'm Dennis and I'm an addict.
Hi, Dennis.
I'm grateful to be here. I came to this program with a belief system that was shattered, and it was all based on luck. Everything was luck. I was either riding the luck or hiding out until it came back. And I always believed it was something I did to change the luck. You know? And I believed that using, if I was feeling something, using would make the feeling where I would still be out there. And my belief system changed when I came to my first meeting and they told me it would get better if I just didn't pick up, went to meetings, kept coming back. And my first lessons in that were doing just that, and things got a little better. And I think it's all based on faith. You know, to me, that's what coming to believe is about, faith. And that had to grow. I had to give it those little bitty pieces to see if this is going to work. I've never been a person to jump in and give it all at once. It's like, I'll give a little bit, and then if it works, I'll try it again, and if it works, I'll try some more. And so that was my first lesson. I'll go to meetings, I won't pick up, I'll see if this is going to work, because I was pretty desperate because none of that other stuff was working. And the next one was, I was a parent, and through my using, I didn't have my children anymore. And I wanted it back. And they gave me that faith that if I kept going to meetings, kept working on myself, it might happen. And it might not. But I had to have the faith that whatever was going to happen was going to happen, but I had to do the things they were telling me to do. I had to keep going to meetings, and I had to not pick up, and I had to start sharing and do service. And it happened. They're back with me. And that restored, that made that faith a little bit stronger, and I came to believe a little bit more that just doing the right thing was what it was about. It wasn't about that luck anymore. And about feelings, that was changing too, because it was about feeling wherever I was at. And it wasn't about running from it, just feeling it. And then that was going to pass, and I was going to grow. And there was another lesson in resentment. The mother of my children, there was a big one there, and they told me to pray for that person. And I had faith, that faith was growing. I had the faith that if I prayed, I would really turn over that resentment. And it did, and I cared about what could happen to that person. It's trying something new for me. And not having the answer, because anytime I say I know, I'm not practicing that, because I already got it in my head, and I'm not going to find a new solution. And coming to believe is believing that there's something else out there than what I know, because whenever I'm saying I know, I'm not looking for something different, and that's that insanity, of doing the same stuff over and over. I recently had a test in it today with, now these children are teenagers, and that's really testing that faith. And I had to come to a point where I don't know anymore, and I had to go to outside help, and I had to take some classes, and I had to ask a lot of people where they were at when they were teenagers, because I don't really remember. I blocked all that stuff out, and I had to talk to people that could remember. They were either closer to it or clean or something, that they remembered what that was like, because it was all just a blur to me, because I used through it. And I had to have that faith again, and to believe that something else could help me through that, something else, and it's getting better again. And this is like everything else. It grows. The more I come to a point where I can't do it, I have to reach out and let something else come in, and it grows that much more. And that's where the faith grows and gets stronger. Thank you, Tommy and Mike. You both touched my life last year, and it's great to have it happen again. And, I'm grateful to be here. That's all I have.
Thanks, Dennis.
My name is Lynn. I first come around, about the only thing I believed that was, all around a pig's ass was pork. That's about as far as I could get, But I had a sponsor real early. I continued to have all of my recovery, and he told me early that recovery was working and reworking the steps. And he always brought that to me, and the way he explained them to me was that you would take step 1 and add step 2 to it, then take step 2 to it and add step 3 and so on, So I always knew that I always had to start with the belief system, and add to it, And when we come to that realization in our recovery that it's not the drugs, then I started believing in the people being channels of my higher power that could enable me to be whatever I wanted to be, and that if I wanted my children in my life, I had to be the type of a parent that my children would want, and if I wanted my neighbors in my life, that I had to be the type of a neighbor that my neighbors would want, So I've kind of come to believe in those areas, that it's like a monkey see, monkey do thing for me, and I just got to find the right monkey to follow. And I spend a lot of time working with my higher power on a daily basis. I talk that language, when I do my H&I work, to get down on your knees in the morning, and to make that decision to turn your life and your will over to the care of a power greater than yourself, Well, I have to know that when was the last time I done it? And I have to know that it was this morning. And when was the last time I'd done it before that? And that was yesterday morning, And if I continue to do today what worked for me yesterday, that not only can I be that parent and that neighbor, but I can be that brother, I can be that son, I can be that husband. I'm grateful to be here today. I'm grateful that there's a place for me to come to work in this disease of addiction that I have. I'm grateful to see people at the tables that were here before I came that are still here to hold the door open for me and allow me to hold the door open for the next person. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Lynn. Nita?
Hi, I'm Anita, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Nita.
I want to thank Mike and Tom for taking the workshop this morning. Like my first experience with coming to believe was when I was in a rehab and I heard the message of Narcotics Anonymous through H&I, and those people told me that I never had to use again, like one day at a time. And when I left there, I started to come to meetings, and by the time I had put together about 60 days clean time, I'd been making like a meeting every day because that's what they told me that I had to do. And then by that time, a little bit of the fog started to lift, and I was able to look at these things at the front of the room and look at these steps and traditions. And I tell you, when I saw the words higher power and God, I kind of wanted to leave. And because that's where I was at that point in my time. And they said, this is a spiritual program, this isn't a religious program. And when I came into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I didn't know how to pray, and I didn't have a higher power in my life. And I didn't have a sponsor at that time. And just like I remember, what Tommy was saying, when that noise in my head got so bad that I actually called up like one of the women who had given me that telephone number, and she said, you know, I'm gonna use, there was like stuff going on at that time, and like I didn't know how to deal with like all like these feelings without getting high. And she told me, I'm gonna be at a meeting, and it's on the second step, and I want you to come down. And like I'd ask her to sponsor me, and she says, you know what, let's do this in person. And it was like the second step meeting, and I heard her share on it, and then we had like some talking about it. She told me, have you gotten down on your knees and asked for God to like lift this obsession? And I said, well, no, I didn't do that. And she put it in like really simplistic terms, and she said, well, I know you got down on your knees, girl, to get those rocks and whatever else you wanted to do on your knees. And she said, I don't know why you can't get down on your knees and pray to God. And that was my first experience of like coming to believe, like in this fellowship, and by getting a sponsor, like I learned how to get a higher power in my life, and I learned to get something more powerful than the drugs. And it was just such like a tremendous spiritual awakening for me. And I went home and I got down on my knees, and it is like that noise, just it like went away for a while, and it's really neat, like that, just like such a simple thing about that, and getting something that's loving and caring, and it's greater than drugs. It's just like it worked, and it's worked for me ever since, and it's just so funny how when you come into these rooms, you're so scared, and you're just like so self-centered, and just like something so simplistic as that. I mean, it's just like, it was like a revelation for me. And you needed to hear like what everybody had to say. And now I like feel like so centered. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Adam called Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah. When I first came to Narcotics Anonymous, it wasn't to quit using drugs. It was just to quit. It's just because I was going to a psychiatrist for so many years for the State Farm was paying for it, like good neighbors, you know. But I was going there for free, you know, and so I went there, and then he suggested that I go to another, the close-up program, and I was just going there I liked the people coming up and hugging me, and wow, this is great, I can meet someone now, you know. And so I went to meetings for now 30 days in a row, you know, like I went. They told me one meeting, the first meeting I was there, it says, so we got some good news for you, we got some bad news for you. The good news is you never use again. The bad news is you can't use again until what I say first. And they smiled, you know, because they knew it's true. That when I decided to change towns and everything, I decided that wasn't the same program up here that it was down there. So I rationalized, justified coming back out and trying how to do it myself, you know. But then I tried to do it myself several different ways. I said several different. When this happens, I'll go this happens, and I always end up at the same place. And so I knew that there was a better way. There wasn't a better way to live, and I knew that this program does work. I seen it working and everything, and I came back, you know. But I wasn't. I came back. And I was still going 10 days and going back. And then went to the first convention, and they said, "Well, change recovery like you change your drugs." So I said, "No problem." I just made the switch, and I've been and that's, you know, I still have moments of insanity, you know. I still have my obsessive. I can be obsessed, but I don't want to be obsessed about it. And like I can it'll make so much noise in my head I can't go to sleep at night, and it drives me crazy sometimes. But if I just step back and do what I was told in the first place, you know, it works, you know. But I tend to not do that, and tend to try to do it my way again. But I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be clean. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Dana.
Hi, Dana.
Go ahead, Dana.
Okay, Dan and then Greg.
Say about yesterday after lunch, one of us went out and played volleyball, and When we go over there,
If you like.
You won't be able to.
There'll be a blank spot in the tape if you don't.
After lunch, we went out and played some volleyball, and when I was out there playing, I pulled a muscle, and it just like hurt a little bit, and so I went out and got the baseball bat and the softball, and we're out there, and now I'm really hurting, and to the point where I can't even walk hardly, and I can't run anymore. And I talked to a friend of mine on the phone last night, and he says, you know, Dana, you don't have to do this. It's okay to rest, and it's okay to take some time off. You don't have to prove anything to us. I said, well, I'm proving it to myself. So we're walking down by a lake last night and fell in this hole, and I had a lot of pain. And that's just a real good example of the insanity. I share with the people that I'm close to that the disease lives in my head and recovery lives in my heart. And that's a real hard transition for me to make, to go from my head to my heart, because I know what's good is in my heart. I'm grateful to the addicts in my life that help me get into my heart. What goes on in my head tells me real bad things about people in these rooms. You know, I can sit in a meeting and I listen. I'm a real good listener at meetings, but sometimes I think the worst of people in these rooms, and I forget that it's these people or take for granted that it's the addicts that keep saving my ass over and over and over again. And I often wonder why. The disease tells me I'm not good enough. I'm just not good enough, and I have to keep doing and keep pushing, and just like hurting my leg, I keep hurting myself with all of that. Last night we went to the meditation, and that was a very painful experience for me, and it was real hard for me to cry, to let myself do that, especially in a room full of people I don't know. And we got back to the lodge, and to just lay there and cry in front of other people is a very hard thing for me to do. But I know that was my being restored to sanity and being in my heart and my gut. And for people to say it's okay to cry and it's okay to feel how you feel. I've been walking around for weeks just, pushing myself in all areas to prove something, that I'm good enough and that I do belong here. A lot of times, I go on to the next step, and it's like, it's not going to work for me. I know it works for everybody else, and it works for everyone around the world, but it's not going to work for me. This is the end of the line, and I believe that in my head. And I had another woman share with me, now that you're in recovery, do you go into small, dark, scary places by yourself? And she said no, and her sponsor said, then don't go in your head by yourself either. And one of the most powerful and hardest things that I need to do is, when I'm in my head, to take another addict in there with me. One of my least favorite sayings was, an addict alone is in bad company, because I learned how to be alone and be okay being alone. And until I realized that in my head, that's where the disease is at, and if I'm in there alone, I know I'm heading back out. And I am so grateful to be here this weekend. We grow with love, and that is just so true. I'm growing with love, and I have to say thank you for that. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Greg and I'm an addict.
hey, Greg.
Speak up.
I'll speak up. I'm not really good in front of large groups of people. When I first came around, I was pretty unique, terminally unique. I believe that the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous worked for those people in there because they needed it. I had emotional problems, and if I got rid of the emotional problems, the drug problem would go away. And I lived in denial about my addiction for about 3 years. And I could accumulate some clean time, and then I would use, and I never understood that. And I don't know, I was at like the end of the rope last year, and my sponsor at that time said, you know, let's go to this convention. You know, and I'm not a convention person. You know, I went to CRC and I stayed in my room the whole time I was there and watched Spectrovision. You know. And, I came here last year, and some really weird things happened, like the last day. I remember they were saying, you know, they had to write how much clean time you had, and I had 7 days when I came here last year. And I was really embarrassed about that and ashamed. Because I couldn't figure out why I couldn't stay clean. I couldn't figure it out. Like, you know, I'm trying to work on all these problems if I couldn't stay clean. And I remember walking to the main speaker with my sponsor, and I said, now listen, they're doing that stupid clean time thing. And I'm not standing up, period. So don't look at me, don't do nothing, you know. Well, that day, I had talked with another addict, it was Lawrence B's wife, and I let it slip that I only had 7 days. And that woman has the biggest mouth I've ever It's like I went to that meeting, you know, and like they did, and they got like down to 7 days, and like I'm like, you know, and like they repeated it like about 10 times, you know, and I was like kind of forced to stand up, and it was kind of humiliating for me, and I think that's exactly what I needed, because I came here and I came to believe here, and I found something at this convention that, you know, that has stayed with me until today, you know, and I never thought for a second that I was really the type of addict that you all were. And I don't know, it's like last night, I couldn't stand up because, you know what, I really don't know how I did it. I really don't, you know. I know I didn't pick up, you know, and I kind of got a clue there that that's part of like clean time, you know. I met some really great people here, you know, people I owe a lot of things to. You know, and today I'm not that terminally unique individual. You know, and I have that faith that I can continue on, you know. I found out here that I never have to pick up again, never. You know, and that's probably the biggest gift I got here. And, you know, I've been like, had all these grandiose expectations like 3 weeks ago about this, you know, and every one of them came true. You know, and I'm just like so grateful to be here. It's I don't know, I get really emotional about it because like this is where it started for me, you know. And I don't know, I just like, I was on that pink cloud like Skip was, man, when I was here. I mean, I went home and I did a 4-step, you know, and I don't know. I just want to say thanks to everyone that was here last year because, you know what, each one of you touched me. And there's some people that really touched me. And I'm really grateful that those people are still in my life. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg.
I'm Nancy, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Nancy.
Boy, I'm glad I'm following you, Greg, because you said the main thing. I came here and came to believe that I don't ever have to pick up again. Because I have a friend who has had over 9 years of clean time. And he just went back out 3 weeks ago. After 9 years. Over 9 years. And it was we're real close. He was, you know, he's one of the best male friends I have. And we went through a lot of stuff together. A lot of stuff over the years. And I guess, I was thinking about insanity. And, I guess I got a little anger because I know how insane it is. Insanity is believing. I guess I'm real grateful that I'm a low bottom case. I was the dregs of humanity, you know what I mean? I love what you had to say, Tommy, about the voices and thinking you needed to go to, I maybe need to check in and, cause I did, twice to 2 state institutions. And, was put there against my will. And I was legally crazy. And the doctor told my mother that she might as well just accept it. I was going to be there the rest of my life. And I just, she was just going to have to get over it. She was just going to have to accept it. And I believed it too. I believed it too. But I sobered up in that institution. It is what you make of it. But I guess what I want to say is, I know at the end of my addiction, I was taking like 35 Valiums a day. And I go out and I buy a quart of sangria at night, and I drink it. Because by the time I hit the end of the road, I didn't want to think, feel, or even move. I didn't want anything around me or in me or nothing. I wanted to be totally anesthetized, and I really didn't care if I died. I came close, my breathing shut down twice, and I very well could have been. I just didn't want anything or anybody anymore. And I didn't want to feel nothing. And from there, I went to the institution, and from that thing, I went to the institution. I guess I prayed all along, God, never forget, when I was in the institution, never let me forget where I came from. Never let me forget what it felt like back then. Never let me forget. Never let me forget. Please never let me forget. And He's granted that. It's one of the greatest blessings He's ever granted me. And I'll be eternally grateful, as long as, if nothing else. And I've gotten a whole lot. Something was said here about being restored to sanity. Restored means you get something that you once had. For some of us, it's doubtful we had it to begin with. And I'm one of those people. I've gotten so much more than I ever started out with. I could never even begin to number or name them. But I guess my friend forgot. He forgot. And the insanity came back, and he thought it would help. He thought it would. And he already knows it didn't. He's lost everything. He's lost everything within 3 weeks. Which shows the progression of the illness. When you hear stuff about that, and you hear it, I do anyway, I hear about it constantly. I had sponsors that really bang that into my head. You don't have to doubt it, And when you see people, they're right. It's right, like they're illuminating it, It doesn't matter how much time you have. Doesn't matter. He was a great service person. He was in the farm, did a lot of stuff. But when the time came, he believed in insanity. That this would help, that this would work, and this time it would be different. That's the curse, How many times did I tell myself when I picked up, I know this didn't work the last time, but this time it'll be different. If I just do this, or I just do that, or something else, it'll be different this time. And after 9 years, he believed that. It's been painful to watch this. It's been painful to talk to, to be, and pain is not a bad thing. I run from it like the plague. but painting got me here. You know, I didn't come here wanting to, and I didn't come here thinking, gee, it'd be a wonderful concept to be an addict, and I just want to come to these meetings, you know. I came here because there was no hope, and I had, everything else had been exhausted. And that was it, and I was in so much pain. Like I said, I didn't want to have anything in my life, nothing, just pure anesthesia and hopefully a quiet death. That's all.
Nancy's going to share here, and we need to close in about 10 minutes for lunch. So.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm an addict. Grateful to be here with you people today. It's through you people, my higher power, my program that I didn't use, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I'll pray for your friend Nancy. You know, that's all we can do. Unfortunately, the insanity is oftentimes stronger than our disease, and I firmly believe that my program only works as well as I'm willing to work it. You know, and if I don't put any effort into it, I ain't going to get nothing out of it. You know, and those steps are there as a guide, but I have to make the effort. I have to do the footwork, you know, and I truly believe and have faith that my higher power brought me here last year, and he's brought me here again through all adversity and time and whatever I had to do to get here, I was willing to do because I knew that there was something here I needed, and I needed to restore my faith in my higher power. And I do that by being with a bunch of addicts in a place like this that I can find some serenity, that I'm willing to open my mind and not believe that I have all the answers. Because I know that my best thinking got me into the rooms the first time, even though it wasn't me that dragged me in there, it was the court system. You know, I wasn't willing to come to this program. You know, yes, I was beaten. Yes, I knew I was an addict, but I wasn't willing to quit. Yeah, I almost died. You know, a lot of us have been there. You know, but it wasn't enough. You know, I still thought I could do it. You know, and I know what unmanageability is. And today I don't always know what sanity is, but I do know what insanity is. You know, and it is insane for me to keep doing the things that make my life miserable. And I still do those things today. You know, I still try to force my will on certain things. I still try to make other people live according to what I think is right. That don't work. That just makes me unmanageable. You know, they're going to do whatever the hell they want to do. You know, and they have the right to do that. You know, and I have to give them that right. And that's hard for me. You know, to allow other people to be who they are. Because I demand it, but I don't want you to do it. You know, that's bullshit. You know, you gotta do it my way, that's the way it is. And especially since I'm living with another recovering addict, that's one of the hardest things I've had to learn to do, is get out of his program and let him live his life the way he wants to do. And I have a belief that everybody in this room, higher power is going to keep them clean today. You know, I believe that this program works miracles in all our lives. You know, and I truly try to turn my will and my life over to my higher power. And I know that when I do it, and I do it to the best of my ability, and I keep doing it, not only just once, but a couple times a day, when I find myself in that situation that's unmanageable. You know, when I get to the point, not that I'm broken, but that I'm just bending and I'm saying, okay, you know, God, it's time, you know, and then I let him have it. And then I'm much better, you know. I saw an analogy once about a person in a meeting, and he had this visual picture, and on the bottom of the picture was a grain elevator. And, you know, being from Iowa, I see these things all the time, you know. And it was like a dump truck, and it was down here at the bottom, and it had all these little chairs that kept going up and up and up until God was at the top of this chain, you know. And you took whoever it was or whatever the problem was, and you set it in one of these buckets, and you rode it right up that elevator, and you sent it right to God, you know. And you kept giving it to him, and if it comes back down, if it falls back out of the sky, you pick it back up again, send it back on there, send it back up there again, you know. And then eventually it stays up there. You know, because you got to keep getting rid of it. You know, and it's when I pick it up and throw it over my back again and carry it around for another 20 years, then my life is unmanageable, you know. But I truly believe that I can live a honest, caring, joyous life if I let this program work for me. That's all I have. Thanks.
Yeah, a couple minutes.
Couple minutes? Oh, man. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about, you know, I didn't live in nothing, period, man, even myself. You know, all I knew was I was pretty much insane when I first got here. What I'd like to share about, you know, just in a couple minutes that I got is the bass anglers, you know, second and third steps. That's how I work the stuff. And it's about, I'm a fish. You know, swimming around in the water, you know, I'm pretty comfortable in my little life. And every once in a while I'll see something on the top of the water, and it's different lures, different hooks, and it just depends on the different, you know, test, you know, the strength of the line. And every once in a while I'll go up and test it. Every once in a while I'll go up and, you know, test these lures and see if I can break the line, you know. But every once in a while, you know, I'll snag onto one. And it's about a principle. And it's about who's casting the line. It's about how far I can run with this bait before it either breaks or if I just keep going with it. You know? And if it's something that's truly the fruits, the healthy fruits of my, you know, of my spirituality, what I live in today, because I'm a runner, you know, and that ain't in a bad sense. You know, I like to run with the program, you know, because I got some good lures. You know, I've snatched down some good bait. But there are times that they'll throw a worm out there every once in a while. You know, and I'll still go for it. Because I'm sane, right? I am still temporarily, you know, momentarily insane. I still like going for the worm every once in a while, you know. I still like acting out, right? What I've learned though is that I don't have to act out on my obsessive thoughts. So when I do see a worm floating in the water, or when I do see a bad lure, a rusty hook or something like that, you know, I don't have to go after that. I can go after the good lures, you know, like the jitterbugs and, you know, the hula hoppers and stuff like that. But what I've learned in my life since I've been here is that there's a real, like a 300-pound test line, and it's got about 4 or 5, 10 different hooks on it, and I'm just cruising through life now, and I got a real light, and it just depends on, you know, if I want to get in the way. If I want to drag it around weed beds and stuff like that and make it hard on myself. And I got, you know, one fish, you know, I'm the fish. And I got this thing, you know, this other power. You know, that's my higher power. I choose to, you know, call it God, but he's the one that's casting the line. And he's got the drag set on 1 or 0, and I'm cruising. But every time I want to start, you know, dragging around weed beds, I complicate the matters. So if I just go straight out, no problem. But I got all these different hooks on this line too. You know, I got my son on it. I got, you know, my job on it. You know, all these things are on this line. I don't want to break the line. I really don't. I don't want to break that line. And yeah, sometimes I come up out of the water, you know, and I'll splash, and I'll take off this way, and I'll take off this way, and it'll take 45 minutes to draw me in. it'll take me 45 days, a year to travel back in. But if I just stay at peace, if I just kind of close to the water, and I'm just laying around, you know, and I'm just content with what I have, you know, instead of things that I think I need to have in my life, I'm comfortable. Thanks.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Group hug on the grass.
Oh,